Hey Ankush, thanks so much for having me here. A very good evening to everybody watching us. And Ankush must tell, it's always been great being part of the expert family. Uh, big congratulations as well as best wishes for whatever you and your parents have been doing. I was just going through some of the EduPath videos that you shared with me earlier. I was watching Mr. Rolas Kamath as well as Professor Rao's videos, and definitely mind blown. As in, I wish I had access to such learnings when I was studying at this time. Well, thank you, Ankush. My pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. So I want to start off by asking you, you were a science student during your pre-university, right? And most students, science students especially, okay, they want to get into IITs, and what they think of is engineering, because that's what IITs are known for, right? It's an Indian Institute of Technology.
No, sure,
You
Ankush. I
went to
think
IIT Kharagpur
you know,
and did something
starting
that
off,
most of us are
I'd
probably
got
aren't
some good
aware of.
marks
You
in
did an
10th,
integrated MS in
and the next
economics.
steps were always kind of
So, how
very
did this
obvious to say
transition
that
happen
let's
from
join the
being a
science
science
stream. It
student
wasn't
to
really
getting into
a choice or
economics,
an option
and
at
what made you
that point.
choose this
Looking
field?
back, probably I would have chosen the commerce discipline, given I think my interests, or I understand that better. But once I got into science, I think the only option that I had to choose for was whether I take a PCMB, biology, or science, or statistics. Luckily, statistics was an option, which is where I'd taken that. And during my 11th and 12th, while kind of had to go over all these four curriculums, I couldn't really understand a lot of chemistry, honestly, as in it was too theoretical. I couldn't really
Right.
visualize how it actually worked in practice. Physics was great, as in it was still better. Again, a lot of credit to the professors and teachers who taught me physics. That it went really well there. But maths and statistics was something that I was really loving. And when the choice came, had got all the ranks, had all the options in front of me, and that's when even I, for the first time, saw the economics curriculum in both BITS as well as IIT, and that featured in top of my list because I understood that it's a scientific approach to economics. It's not a BA or an MA in economics, so it was a master's of science in economics. That was the degree, and kind of it just made sense. So that's what I'd applied for in both BITS and IIT Kanpur as well as Kharagpur. Finally got Kharagpur, and then I think that I think that would have been my first probably very conscious decision that I had made in my professional career, and very very happy for that. So kind of, even the degree that I had to do in IIT Kharagpur around economics was a lot of maths, a lot of stats, econometrics, regression, and the other side, which was public finance policy, as well as, that was my first financial markets as well as financial institutions look like.
Right. No, generally when we talk about economics, we think about business schools, right? Because a lot of economists coming out of, there are schools of economics, there's the business schools out there.
No, so I
But
think
is there any difference between
definitely
studying
advantages.
economics in
I
a
think the comparison
technological
here
or a
is between,
technical
say, a
institute like
commerce
IIT
college
versus a
and,
business
a
school?
technology or a
Do
science
you find any
college or
difference in
university like IIT
this,
Kharagpur.
or was it
There
of
I would
any
have been doing a
advantage to
BA
you?
or a MA in economics. Here I was doing a BSc plus MSc in economics. And while the curriculum was also more scientific, more towards, the mathematics discipline, the other part was around having, a network or a friends group who were all doing different disciplines. Again, IIT Kharagpur, given it's the largest IIT, has, a host of different disciplines. It's not just engineering. Engineering, they have the largest number of branches, right from things that like ocean and naval engineering to agriculture and food engineering. Even on the humanity side, we had, say, economics, we had social sciences, we had chemistry. These were all undergraduate degrees. So I think that was the biggest advantage for me, because
Right.
my friends group, my batchmates were all doing different things, and sharing the same space with them obviously developed, my instincts, my knowledge much more.
Right.
No, no, absolutely.
Right. I think the diversity is also important. When you're surrounded by people from so many different streams, it actually makes you more creative, probably. Uh, yeah.
No, sure.
Just to understand your
I
journey,
think there
so
was
you
a
went
very
to IIT
short period
Kharagpur,
before starting
went for an
Smallcase,
integrated
but
MSc program.
after
You graduated out
graduating,
of Kharagpur,
my
and
offer from college was
from
to
there
join
to
this
starting
investment bank
small
called
case.
JP
How did
Morgan.
that happen?
This was in Mumbai. And I think 2 weeks before joining, one of my seniors reached out to me and said, his friend, actually his ex-boss, is starting a new company that is going to
Hmm.
be doing a lot of research about startups, about the private markets. And the thesis or the idea was that there is so much information about stocks or companies that are listed on the stock exchange. The same kind of information is not collated or put together in a database about startups. And startups are growing very fast. They are leaving a digital footprint. Like, you can understand the growth of a startup from, say, its LinkedIn, from its Twitter, from its Facebook, how it's actually growing, from its Play Store downloads, etc. So why not build a database like this? That was, what my friend's ex-boss was thinking about doing. And that seemed more relevant, as in it seemed something that I should look at. Obviously, luckily for me, again, the founders of those companies were very distinguished. They had, a very good, I would be the first employee there, trying to build out on one side the product and business, at the same time do what was interesting and enjoyable to me, which is understanding business models, understanding companies. So it just seemed very, again, obvious or natural to kind of take that. And that's where I had a ball of a time. I kind of understood how venture capitalists or private equity firms valued startups, understood evaluated startups, understood business models, understood what sectors are being disrupted and how, by what kind of technologies. And like you mentioned, like, after studying 20,000 startups in detail, you obviously get the very strong urge to become an operator. And that was the next step. That's where, luckily, I found two of my friends from college itself. We had a common idea that we could kind of brainstorm around and actually build a business around. And that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years.
Right. Talking about
So,
ideas, ideas are very, very plenty these days. There are People have a lot of ideas, some of them good, some of them okay, some of them probably bad ideas. But ideas are in plenty, right? A lot of people have ideas,
Right.
but I think what makes a successful startup different is that they actually make that idea into a sustainable business. So how does that work? Now you had an idea, but then you had to make it
No,
into
sure.
something
So,
that really
this was
works
not the
for
only
people,
idea
that
I had
people
when I
would
was
be
thinking
interested
about
in,
starting up
and
on my
also
own.
build a business
I
out of
think
it. So how did you go
my
about that?
idea, the definition of my idea would be more that I knew I wanted to build a company on my own. It was not that I wanted to build Smallcase specifically. That was one of the ideas on the idea board. The other one, I was building a online first mattress brand. Kind of the thesis behind that was, when a mattress is developed, maybe even the best of mat 1,000 rupees, but by the time it finally gets to the
Okay,
consumer, there are so many middlemen that the margin goes up by 4x 5x. So you're finally buying a great mattress at 40,000, 50,000. So if you could build something that could cut through all these middlemen, you
correct,
can have a very you can own the experience, at the same time kind of deliver it at the cheapest cost possible. So that was one idea. But I think repeat it all over again. Luckily, again, made the right choice there. But the market, or starting from who is going to be using this product or this idea, I think that is very key. What differentiates, some of the successful startups versus, say, ideas that came and failed? One is definitely the number of people who could be basically kind of using this, or the amount of uh, time that one of these users are spending on a potential idea like this. So your market, or uh, frequency of usage should be really high. And second is, again, very important or critical to whether it would become a sustainable business or not, is the timing itself. So for example, I don't think if this idea, what we had done today, if we had done it 10 years back, it would have been as successful. We would have to kind of wait and survive it till today to kind of see the success and scale that we are seeing. So I think these are the two primary things that kind of go into whether
correct,
idea can be made into a business or not, whether there are enough people using it, whether the timing is right, and whether you can build efficiency into the process. Like any disruptor, be it say an Uber, Airbnb, everybody has focused on making the process of that experience very efficient, so that they can basically make money off the inefficiencies itself. So kind of removing that inefficiency is important. And then what kind of that idea becoming a business and that scaling depends on other things, including you get funds, you get you're the right people to build this with you, you get the right partners, the market is ready for something like this. But I think the first two things would definitely be the size of the market, as well as the timing that you're taking this idea to the market with.
correct. So yeah, of course, some of our viewers might already know what Smallcase is about, but we have a lot of people who are, probably still in college right now, and may not be well versed with the stock market. So, in simple terms, please tell
Sure.
us what Smallcase is
I'll
about.
keep it very simple, so that people
What
who are
is the idea
who do
behind
not have
Smallcase?
any idea about how stocks or even the markets work actually get it. But the reason some people invest into stocks is because you're investing into a company, and you would like to invest into companies that have a good future, and that's what investing into a stock is all about. So there are multiple ways to invest in stocks. So one example that I give is, you listen to music, how that has changed over time. Like earlier, you would get a cassette or a CD disc. There will be 10 songs to 12 songs in it. You might want to listen to two songs, but then you can't really do that, which is where you have to buy the whole cassette. So you're overpaying for those two songs that you might want to listen. That is
Right.
similar to, say, how, say, a mutual fund works. You are essentially giving your money to a fund manager. They will invest where they want to. You don't have any say in what happens there.
Correct.
But then it's a great way for people to start out. And then if you just want to listen to music,
Correct.
buying a cassette is better than nothing. The next thing was, I don't know how many
Correct.
of the viewers know or remember about this, but iTunes came in. You could buy, songs on iTunes. You pay 5 rupees, you buy a song, or say piracy. You go to songs.pk, actually, then download a song and then build your own library of songs. obviously you needed to know which song to invest. That's like investing in your own stocks. You need to kind of pick which stock to buy, understand its fundamentals, its technicals, how good the management is, what its prospects are, how is the sector faring, etc. So a lot of work before you actually build your own library, or say in this side your stocks portfolio. The what we tried to build was more of a layer which would ease this process. So today, how we listen to music, that's how we're trying to build this behavior of investing into stocks. That we listen to playlists today. Now, those playlists could be about an artist. It could be a genre like rock, for example. You could say you're going for a drive, you want to listen to music. It could be for a mood. It could be before sleeping, and that's what we want to create. So, for example, if you think that electric vehicles are going to become a more widespread thing in India over the next 10
Sure.
years, we have a basket of stocks that is professionally created and managed, and that's called the electric mobility small case. Similarly, if you think, say, for example, digital inclusion or more internet penetration and people using smartphones is going to increase. There are a bunch of companies that operate in that chain, right from mobile set manufacturers to the internet service providers to people who are building raw materials for cables, broadband, etc. So that could be a basket that you invest in. That's what that would be called the digital inclusion small case. So the idea is to make it very simple for someone who's looking to invest in an shift that's happening in the, and we do the kind of work around enabling
Sure.
these products to be built.
Right, right. I think your analogy of music would probably the best way to have explained this, and I'm sure a lot of people would have got it because these days people listen to playlists on be it Spotify or
Absolutely.
other platforms, and there are two ways. I
Like, for
think
example, if you
because I've
have
used
someone in your
Smallcase, I do know
network
that
who you think is a
it's
great
not
stock
just
picker,
okay
you
Spotify
can
recommending
essentially
a
ask them
playlist
to
based on a
create
genre, but
their
you can
own
also
small
create
case
your
and
own
then share it
playlist,
with you.
right?
Like you would ask
So
someone to share their own
that
playlist.
is what
So
something that
anybody,
you
if the
also do.
viewers,
Uh,
you should definitely ask
now,
Ankush to share his small case with you.
right, correct, right. So we're getting a lot of questions from us viewers actually, mostly expert students. Interesting questions. Before I ask you this, I would like to remind our viewers that you can send your own questions to today's guest. You just have to type it on WhatsApp and send it to the number that's displayed on your screen. That is 82964901168. So we have a few questions. These are kind of related. Swarna, Malki, and Tanuj, they're asking, how was your journey at Expert?
No,
And
sure.
also, Tanuj
I
asks,
think,
did you
like I
write
said, so
assignments or
just a
homework at
little bit
Expert those days? And
background.
how did
I
it help you to
studied
get into IIT?
in Abu Dhabi, UAE till my 10th standard. And then 11th and 12th was where I came to Mangalore. And like I said, the decision was not made by me. Like I didn't know what, say, JE was or what PUC was also at that point of time. My parents said that, Mangalore is where you do it, because the other option was that you continue to study in Abu Dhabi, do your 11th and 12th there, and eventually you look west. And that was
Yeah,
something I knew I didn't want to do. I wanted to come back to India itself. So uh,
correct.
Expert was not a college at that point. It was only coaching classes, which is where I got. I took up admission at St. Aloysius, did my 11th and 12th there,
Right,
and was
correct.
also looking to get into, say, engineering institute. At that time, that was the idea, given that I selected statistics. And Expert had come up with this new program called the 5-in-1, and I was part of the first batch. So I think I'd come down to give my entrance exam for the 5-in-1,
5 and 1,
had
yes.
done that, got selected, and then joined the 5-in-1 batch. Uh, and it was crazy, as in terms of time. Again, there was no benchmark for me. Like other people had benchmarks to say that okay, people don't spend so much time in classes. People spend more than this, less than this, etc. There was nothing, so I was completely comfortable with the time spent. Now looking back, I think it used to be on holidays. I think 7 to 7:30 classes at Expert. On normal days, it was 7 in the morning to I think 8:30, and then college starts, and then again you're back in Expert at 5, then to 8:39. So most of my waking hours were with this 5-in-1 batch. I think very good friends made over there. And like I was saying, I think the quality of professors and teachers were really good, especially on the mathematics side, because kind of in my JE score also, I think I had got single digit marks in both physics and chemistry. So I was just above the cutoff, which would be like 0, -1, 2 marks. But maths was where I think I had scored like 160 out of 182. And that's where, the ranking came in. So I think that was a great experience. I think again, the assignments, exercises, I don't think there was an option to not do it. So we had to do it. So kind of never had that other choice to say no, I won't do assignments. So but those 2 years were, looking back, were crazy, but I think definitely some of the best, two of the best years in.
Right. And at the end, I think what you have a passion for something, that's very, very important. Now, whenever you started your coming back to your journey of starting Smallcase, you started a startup, and whenever you start something new, generally there are people who tend to discourage you. Maybe they may say that okay, the idea is good, but it might not really work in the long run. There are people who will criticize. Some of the criticism may be good, but a lot of times it may be just that people don't understand what you want to do. How did you face such, I mean, whether did you face such instances where people discouraged you from doing what you wanted to do? And if they did, how did you face that?
No, definitely. I think everyone faces this whenever anybody is trying to do something new, or something that is not, you get a lot of pushback and criticism for sure. Uh, I think, and it stems from the fact that, like you said, say 4 out of 5 startups fail, or 4 out of 5 ideas don't really work out. And as human beings, we have this tendency to want to be right all the time. So, kind of, if you are given a situation and said, is this good or is this bad? One way to do that would be saying, that this will not work out. So that's where a lot of negative kind of feedback or discouragement usually comes in. I think, like as time has passed, obviously there's been a framework to kind of look at this. I think two things is definitely, or say one thing is definitely whether the person giving you this feedback, or kind of discouraging you, whether they're relevant, and to see whether they're relevant or not, maybe two parameters. But one is whether they have the right intent for you or not, as in whether they really want you to succeed or not. That is something super important. And second is whether they understand what you're doing, or the space that in which you're operating. If both of these, or even one of this, is not right, you can't call that feedback relevant. And I think maybe even someone who was telling me that maybe this idea is too small, might not work out, you might have to shut down in a few years, might be watching this. But thinking back, I think the way I should have looked at it was not maybe what they're saying, but why they're saying something. Because it also depends upon how you are communicating a certain idea to people. Because they are not spending their days and nights thinking about this idea. They are only listening to you those 5, 10, 15 minutes that you're actually explaining what you're doing to them. And if they get the wrong impression, obviously the wrong feedback will be also given. So I think more recently, whenever I get such feedback, the idea has been to figure out why they're saying this, whether they understood what I'm trying to articulate over here, or whether I'm doing a bad job actually explaining what we're trying to do. And if fair, that would be taken as feedback. But that they have your best interests at heart, they are well wishers, at the same time kind of their experience, so they might be saying it from some point of view that they had ever seen. Like, for example, in our case also, while we are building for the Indian investor, that was a very small market like 5 years back. And that was the feedback that we kept getting, that this will never become a large company because the number of investors in India is very small. I think at that point it would have been 20-25 lakh people who were investing in stocks. And nobody could have really projected or foreseen that this number would grow in the next 5 years, while everybody knew that it would grow. Whether this 5 years or the next 10 years or the next 50 years, nobody really knows that. So, kind of fair in their point to say that this is not a market that you should be tapping into. Maybe it's some other market that you should be looking at. Obviously, at that point, I didn't get why they were saying this, or what was the application of this. But again, very luckily, this 25 lakhs today has grown to say 3 crore, 4 crore people in India. And that nobody could have anticipated. But again, when I think about why they were saying this from the point of view that if there are not enough people in the market that you can actually tap into, you cannot make as much money, because either you'll have to make 5x the money that you're making now from one person, or you like service say 5x the number of people. So if that market itself is not growing, what can you do more to get 5x the amount of revenue? So I think it's been a helpful framework, whether the person giving you this feedback is relevant, whether they have the right intent, as well as they understand the space enough to kind of give you that feedback. And second, why are they saying this versus what they're saying?
Okay. So, talking about, we have a lot of people joining, as you said, people participating in the stock market. There are a lot of people that try to. So, is this because of the access to technology that has happened in the past few years? Because we have not just in probably participation in the stock market, but even if you look at the growth of OTT apps like Netflix and Prime and Hotstar, or be it people doing online shopping or net banking and mobile banking as such, coming to finance. So, do you think this is because of the changing technology landscape, and especially in India, with a lot of people getting access to the internet, getting access to internet on their phones? Is this a result of that?
Uh, that I think technology, or this digital access to the markets is one aspect, and that has been true since say the early 90s also, when everything related to stock trading became digitized. Before that, it had to be you call someone up and get an order placed. But from the 90s, it was possible for someone to actually go to a website and place the order. That kind of achieved more and more momentum over the last 5 years, where people could do it from their phones. More people had access to internet itself. But I think the a more underlying shift that has actually powered this is that people are becoming more financial literate, and that has actually kind of really grown over the last few years. Where if maybe some numbers to actually help explain this, like 5 years back, if you look at India's personal wealth, I'm not talking about say corporates or business wealth. I'm just talking about the entire individual's savings or wealth. More than 60% of it was in asset classes or things like real estate, gold. Today, more than 65% of it is in financial assets, be it say bank accounts, be it stocks, be it mutual funds, be it other financial assets. So I think that's been a core driver, which is financial education or literacy. uh, it's also been accompanied by a lot of things, like interest rates are going down. That's the regime that we are in, so obviously people would want to find better avenues to kind of park their money in. But I think the biggest driver has been one, the whole financial literacy growing,
Right.
and second, technology has kind of aided that. In the sense, I think more than just opening up access, technology has enabled capturing of people who were not able to kind of even invest. It's not just about the access part, but new experiences that help people who don't even say mutual funds to start investing in stocks. Now those
Right.
experiences have become possible.
Right. Right. So again, we're getting a few questions. There's a very interesting question that someone's asked. Um in fact, there are two questions that are kind of related, I would say. They're asked slightly differently. Sakshi from Mysore has asked, um, so if you're an expert coaching classes alumnus, you become our big brother. So what guidance? So what she is asking is, are teachers and classes important in one's life, or how important are teachers and classes in one's life? On the other hand, one more viewer has asked something similar. If you have to get into a business like how you have done, why do we have to study? Right? Can't we do these things by doing just a BCom or some other degree, or something else? So, what is the role of education? I would say overall in being successful, be it in business or anything else.
No, sure. Very interesting question. Obviously, many new interpretations are coming to this question in different ways. People are trying to create different styles of education, that kind of an alternative system of education in the US, where people are saying maybe what we have been studying traditionally isn't the right way to kind of educate someone. Maybe there's an alternative way to do that, and many different schools of thoughts also there. But for me, practically, I think if you look at it, there is still, like you mentioned this, Ankush, in the start, that there are goals. Like achievers look at goals, so there are goals at every part of someone's life. And today, as a student, say if you're studying 11th and 12th, that goal is to basically move on to the next part of your professional career, which is to either say you want to work somewhere, or you want to start something up, or you want to study more. So depending upon that is how you should look at that education. I think what kind of our system of education also kind of helps build is discipline and rigor. I think which is important as kind of people grow up. So it's not a direct impact of the education system that we've gone through, but then it definitely builds that discipline and rigor to say that yes, this is a structured curriculum you're going through. These are the things that you need to know before appearing for an examination for that. And the result of the examination can be anything, but that whole process of studying for those examinations builds that rigor in you to kind of take on larger projects in life. So uh, the other question, I think, while kind of it's not required to have a degree to build your own business. Actually, there's no degree that will actually equip you to kind of build your own business. It's not like if you have an MBA, you will be more there will be higher probability of you being building a successful business versus if you don't have an MBA. So again, if you look at the qualitative aspects of that, that actually outranks more things. For instance, like I said, kind of once you identify the market that you want to tap into, the next two things kind of build the business that in a manner that you want to build it in is the capital or the funding that you get, as well as say the people that you work with and the people that you partner with. So for those two things, being in a great educational institution only kind of accelerates that. Uh, Obviously, again, it's not a blocker to say that if you're not part of, say, some schools or some educational institutes, that you won't get that. But then, if you are already there, that network gets built. So,
Correct.
in my case, as you can see, like my co-founders are my batchmates from IIT Kharagpur. If I hadn't, say, I had gone the commerce stream, like many ifs and buts conditions there, but if I didn't have the team that I have today, I don't think we would have been here if it was some other two people. As in, these are the two people who actually built it alongside me and have worked more than even me on a lot of aspects of the company that's critical. Even say on the funding part or capital part, the more people the network you have, the more people who can connect you obviously help there, and that's where kind of the only places you can build that network today early on in your career are these education institutions. So that's how I would look at that, because having this degree versus that degree, or having kind of a certain academic path does not
Correct.
mean anything for say what startup you do, or whether you will be successful in entrepreneurship
Right.
or
I
not.
think it's the skills that you pick up on the way, and the discipline and the mindset that you pick up during that education is what really helps you later on. Now,
Absolutely. That and the network
right,
piece as well. As and I think that is something that is underplayed a lot by educational institutions, that you'll come here and get the best in
correct,
education, technology, facilities. But what it is actually that say, distinguishes one school over the other is the kind of people, the
correct,
alumni network that you
correct,
find there versus
correct.
somewhere else.
Now, any startup starts with a small team. You spoke about your co-founders. Starts with a small team of people who have, some similar thought. They have an idea that they want to work on, and they really work well with each other and bring out the best in each other. But as you scale up, as your organization grows, of course, a lot more people start getting involved, be it your own internal employees, or it could be external people who start getting involved in your business. It could be somebody who is infusing capital into your company, but you start working with a lot of people basically. How,
True.
how does one scale up without losing quality or the core values that the organization stands for?
Got it. No, I think the first and foremost thing is definitely still the people. As in, it starts from when you're, a 1% to 2% to 3% team, and eventually, as you scale up, you will continue growing the organization, the number of stakeholders, shareholders, well-wishers, partners, clients that you keep adding. But the kind of people who you uh, onboard to work with you, be it a partner or a team member or an investor, I think, as long as they understand what you're building or completely in sync with that, that is something that is definitely required. And, their quality or their skill set will obviously determine what your products or businesses positioning or messaging is to the end consumer as well. I think for that to happen, the uh, part before that has to be, say, having a very clear mission statement. Now that mission statement can keep evolving over time, but then I think something that has been very helpful to us, whether to do something or not to do something, whether it's right for us or not right for us, has been two things. One is definitely still focusing on that mission. So the when we started, I think the mission was to simplify investing. Today, it is a little more focused to say that we will build simple products for people to invest in, but still, as in that helps us kind of get the right set of people to work with, get the right set of partners to build this along, get the right set of products out in the market. So while that is clear, you can start building everything around that. And the third thing I think is, you know, customer obsession. Like, it's been now obviously a lot of companies kind of keep talking about this, but I think it's because that is what is most key. As in, even if you have the best team, you have, say, the X amount of capital on you, with you, you have everything going right for you. If the customer is not happy with your service or kind of looking to do more business with you, at some point, that's only a transitional business or it's a temporary business. So continuing to understand the consumer, give them the best service and continue to grow with them is something that, the best or the greatest businesses do. I think these three things are what kind of help someone navigate the journey from a founding team to then a small team to a large team and eventually a large outcome.
Correct. So we're getting a few more questions from viewers. So Nandan KR from Uttara Kannada asks, how did you motivate yourself and made up your mind to develop your own company? Who helped you? And how did you get the idea of doing this?
Sure. So honestly, I was just thinking about that maybe sometime back, but I can't pinpoint, at what point or what was the trigger that this actually happened. But I think sometime in my second year in college, it became very clear that at some point in my life, I have to build my own company. And, till then, I have to gather the required skill sets to do this. As in that, I still don't recollect what was the specific trigger or kind of who pushed me in that direction. But I think in second year, it became absolutely clear that this is something I have to do. Now, whatever I do from here, I will keep thinking of it from a perspective that does this help me towards that goal or does this not help me? And like I said before, I don't think small case as an idea was clear. The idea was that I need to build my own company. Now, whatever idea seems right at that point of time to pick up, whether it has a large market, the timing is right, etc. Kind of helped by two three things. Kind of when I started thinking about this more seriously, that was in 2014 and 2015 start, when I had to kind of take an action over here. One was definitely support from family, as in they've been very supportive throughout the entire journey and process. And the fact that a lot of people in my family have also kind of been entrepreneurial. And again, when I was growing up, I used to see them building their own businesses in whatever manner, but I couldn't really grasp the, you know, the intricacies of that, or what it takes to actually build a business. But then it kind of normalized that entire path to me, that building a business is a career path, as in it's not something that is out of our reach or something that we cannot do. So I think that was something that was seeded very early on, that building a business is a good way to do things. You have, say, freedom to do things that you want to. Obviously, kind of, you are building the business, you take all the calls, you have to make the decisions. So as you learn how to take those decisions, but the freedom is still enjoyed by you. So I think that was one thing. And I don't know what really happened in my second year of college, but I think entrepreneurship at that time, there wasn't the kind of support system, the infrastructure in the country to support it. There were obviously people who had built successful businesses and were starting to build at that point, but the kind of ease that you have today in building your own business from scratch, because like when we built it, again, there was no godfather to basically say, you do this and I'll set you up with this customer base or this capital, etc. We had to go and figure it out for ourselves. But that has become very easy in the last 10 years. Like 10 years back, when the second year that I'm talking about, that was 10 years back, it was not that simple. I think, again, don't know the exact spark, but I think from the last 5 years, it's become simpler and simpler to do this. And I think this phase will continue for the next 10 years, where more enterprises, more entrepreneurs will only come into the ecosystem and actually build businesses that kind of uh, survive till eternity.
Right. Now, getting into the stock market business, right? It's a highly regulated field, I would say. You have regulatory bodies like SEBI, and generally when we talk about government regulations and navigating through those to set something up, it can be quite scary, especially in India. Now, and you don't just work with the regulatory bodies, but also other stakeholders like brokerages, depositories, and etc. etc. Did you face any challenges that you faced during setting up your business? And how did you overcome these challenges?
No, I think you're very right. As in, what the space that we are in, I think, is the most regulated space, in India, in terms of, because again, what you're dealing with here is very sensitive. We're dealing with people's savings, their money, and you can't really take, say, a very startup or a Silicon Valley types approach to this, to say that move fast, break things, let's see what happens. Something might work, something might not. So it's always kind of, I think, as a team, we've been very thoughtful. We've kind of sweated the details around what we want to build, how we want to build it. But working and as you know, like, what we build is infrastructure or platforms for businesses, while we keep the investor or the end user at the very core of. We don't directly work with the investor, as in, we
Right.
always work with different partners or entities or institutions that then kind of take our product to the end customer.
Hmm.
So it's definitely been challenging, as in, it's if you're doing the direct to consumer route, where you are building something, taking it to the consumer, you get feedback, you can keep building incrementally. This requires a lot of time, the whole sales cycle, where you have to convince your first partner, then your second partner. Today we work with over 100 businesses, so that's happened over the last 5 years. But till, say, 2 years back, exactly 2 years, 3 months back, we were only working with one
Hmm.
partner. And that one partner was also kind of sold on the vision that we were doing, even though we had pitched, I think, over 20 other potential partners. None of them really understood what we're trying to do. There was one person who said, yes, I understand what you're trying to do. Let's work together. And in the last 3 years, we've gone from one to like 100 plus businesses that we work with. So definitely very challenging, because there are processes, there are regulations, there are different hierarchies of people that you will have to interact with, get their buy-in, get their comfort, confidence before you start working with any entity. And we work with some of the most trusted, respected institutions, including NHDFC, Kotak, ICICI, Edelweiss, IIFL, etc. And that has all happened because I think one learning kind of that I realized maybe a year into starting the business is that, one, that everybody starts from zero. As in, kind of, anybody who's built anything or has done anything, say be it an Olympic medalist or say anybody who's built a business or anybody who's done something creative also, everybody starts from zero. So there is always a learning curve towards that. And at the end of the day, everything is governed by people or humans. So if nothing, there's never that you can take an answer as no. You have to figure out a story or a compelling narrative to convince someone, and if you find that point, everybody can basically kind of agree to what you're saying or be aligned to you. So I think these two learnings have helped really. It kind of humanizes everything in the sense that if I'm say looking to partner with an entity X, I need to know who that decision maker at X is, what they believe in, what weaknesses or strengths are, and how do I then tell them about my story to convince them. And once kind of you take that view or that outlook towards doing things, it just becomes very easier to kind of get things your way also. So I think that's an important learning, but definitely very challenging to work in a very regulated environment. But the more things that we've done today, we are regulated by different entities, exchanges, our partners, as well as SEBI. These have now become actually defensibilities or moats for us, because now when we think of something that is a regulatory roadblock, we think it from the point of view that if you actually surpass this roadblock, then for the next 10 people to do it, they will take the same time
Right.
and effort. So every challenge is now taken to be that if I do this, 10 other people can't come doing the same.
Right.
So that's become a way to kind of flip that challenge into a moat for us.
Right. So as an entrepreneur, you have to make a lot of decisions, be it starting from the decision to actually start Smallcase, and then once you got Smallcase up and running for the past few years, you'd probably have to continuously make certain decisions. Uh, but was there ever a moment where you doubted if you made the right decision or not? Uh, it could be even before making the decision where you are unsure of what decision to make, or maybe after you made the decision you are not sure whether this was the right thing or not. How do you deal with such dilemmas?
No, I think my only job is to kind of take decisions now. As in earlier, there would be a lot of execution tactical work that I had to do. But today, I think we're lucky enough to have the right set of team members, the capital to do what we want to do. And now my job is basically to take, say, 10 to 15 decisions a day. You cannot take more than that in a certain day. And now it depends on your next day or say your next month, next 12 months, next 2 years, depends on how many of those 10 to 15 decisions that you took today are right or wrong. And so you will take wrong decisions. You can never take 100% right decisions, because either you won't have the time or you won't have all information to take these decisions. And this doubt or this self doubt has always been a part. As in, this is something I keep going back to. There is this graph that a fellow entrepreneur had shared with me, where kind of on the y-axis there is that the entrepreneur feels like I'm a winner, I'm killing it, I'm the best at what I do. That's on the higher side. On the lower side, there is I'm a loser, nothing is going right, everything is really bad. And in the middle, there is like, just shut up, just keep doing what you're doing, which is working. And as time passes, the range of basically the graph keeps going, moving towards the normal, which is to say that you have good days, you have bad days, but nothing is permanent.
Right.
It will keep changing from day to day. All you need to keep focusing on is what you have to do at that point and keep moving on. So I think that's really helped. Earlier, like, these ranges are something that everybody feels in their life. Say you're working in an MNC or corporate, or you're building your own business. I think, but the difference for, say, an entrepreneur or founder is that these ranges are very high. One day you're euphoric, you feel like you're on top of the world, everything is going great for you. You can see a path to your next goal. Whereas on another day, you think that maybe tomorrow it's the end, nothing's going to work out really well. And this range is very wide for, say, an entrepreneur versus, say, somebody working in a corporate, where they get a lot less feedback. So they don't know whether, they're doing something good or not. So I think over time, that's been a way to kind of, uh, you know, let things go and basically say, today, if I'm doing great, I have to keep watching out for what's next. If I'm doing not that great, tomorrow will be a better day, but today you have different things. Let's just keep finishing them.
Okay. Now, disruption is a word that we have heard used quite often these days. We talk about companies like Oyo, or, Uber, Airbnb. They've really disrupted the space that they operate in. Uh, how is technology and fintech, this is the new word these days, how is it influencing the landscape of the financial service industry? And how can traditional financial players like banks or other financial institutions embrace the rise of such fintech companies?
No, sure. I think two questions. I think the first one is technology or more than technology. I think user experience is what's become a lot more key today. Uh, it could be, say, how or a website looks to how you experience it, how many taps till you get to what you're doing, how many, whether you see the right information when you're doing a certain step. That is kind of, where it's become a lot more important for, say, financial services itself. And I'm sure, you might have seen this yourself, like, say, 5 years back, just 5 years back. It's tough to imagine, but 5 years back, uh, uh, say my parents, for example, would not trust something unless they could see it, in their neighborhood. They would basically say, I will buy from a big bazaar because I
Right.
know that the store is there. Or say, I will take a service from a certain provider because I know where to go and catch them if they do
Right.
not deliver. Today, that's completely shifted, right? As in, people will not order from big bazaar because their app does not inspire confidence or trust in you, and you would basically take a service because kind of, the design or the experience, or even simple things like the wordings kind of
Right.
inspire that trust or that confidence, which is why you use a certain service. So I think that is what is happening to the financial services landscape in general, where things that people focused on earlier, which is, say, number of branches. The more number of branches, the more penetration you have. Today, that's not necessarily true. You have one app on the Play Store, you are tapping into everybody who has a smartphone. And today, so much percentage of India already has a smartphone,
Right.
so you're addressable to them. So I think that's where traditional financial services companies have built a cost structure or built their, fixed costs in a way for optimizing for something that is no longer true. And that's where you need uh, upstarts or startups which are basically thinking afresh, not starting from any baggage, not starting from any legacy, to build the user experience, while still the trust will come from also partnering with brands like, say, an HDFC, Kotak, Edelweiss, for example, who have actually built that by uh, virtue of legacy. They've been in the market for the last 2 decades, 3 decades, which is where people know it's a trusted brand. If you can match that credibility, that reputation with a seamless user experience, that's a win-win for everybody involved. So I think that's how the even the traditional financial services players or ecosystem is looking at technology. They're saying, you fintech does not have the legacy issues that we have. We started building our systems 20 years back. Changing that is always going to take 5 years, not
Yes.
one, or say 10 months, not 1 month. But you can build that customer experience layer. We will come in with our credibility, reputation, mix and match, take a product or a service or an offering, and actually take this to more people.
Right. Right. So it's more about collaboration, I would say, rather than
Absolutely.
you know.
No, I think this has happened across the globe, as in financial services companies, the traditional ones always looked at fintech companies as a potential competitor. Fintech companies
Right.
always looked at, say, it's not just India, even US, like Goldman Sachs would lending club and say, you know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we're competing. But then
Mm-hmm.
eventually Goldman Sachs, both of them came together to say, let's work together. We have our strengths, you have your strengths. Let's figure out how do we grow the ecosystem versus trying to build a zero-sum game at the end of it.
Right.
So I think that's been the
Uh,
mantra for India, at least in the last 3 years, where collaboration between financial services and fintech has just grown.
right. Now, there's a question coming from a student called Kiral. I think this comes back to you being someone who went to an IIT. He asks, "Sir, what advice will you give for JE aspirants?"
People who are writing JE or people who have
Yeah,
cleared
yeah. For
JE?
people who are writing JE.
No, I think I don't know I honestly don't know how the exam is changed right now, whether it's the same format or
Okay.
not. I think there's a
It
JE
changes. It
mains,
changes
advanced,
quite a bit. Yeah,
etc.
advanced. Yeah.
Correct. So, no, honestly, like I think among my ranks also, I had given 4 exams: the CET, AIEEE, BITSAT, and JE. The other 3 exams I was under 100 rank, but JE exam was my worst rank, as in I had something like around touching 5,000. I think it was 4,900 something. So that was my worst rank, but uh, I think it is a lot to do on how you are on that particular day, because you're essentially condensing 2 or even more years of work into one day, or potentially maybe 2 days now of testing. And how much ever say you actually do during these 2 years, everything comes down to that last one day when you're actually giving the exam. So in order to for you to kind of also put down on paper what you've learned, you need to be very cool and calm on that day to be in that mind frame to do it. So I think that is the make or break kind of day for everyone who's giving any exam. You can say it's not fair, because kind of you're condensing or taking years of work and trying to basically judge someone on 1 or 2 days. It's maybe not fair, but then it's the unfortunate reality. So on that day, how you are, what your temperament is, how patient you are, how calmly you think about things and actually put it on paper is what kind of defines how you ace the exam or not.
Right. And as someone who has been leading a successful startup, uh, what are the most important lessons that you have learned being in that role at Smallcase?
I think two of them I mentioned, Ankush. So one was definitely that everybody starts from zero. So I think once people realize that, it is always easier to pick up a challenge. As in, say you want to compete in the Indian Olympics for, say shooting, maybe 10 years later. The fact that's what many people will say, it's not possible because you're at a certain age, etc. But then the fact is that everybody starts from zero itself. As in, even say Mr. Bindra would have started at some point of time learning how to hold a rifle. Not like he was born a genius. You might have a flair for it, but then everybody starts from that 0 point. Second is that there's never something that cannot be done, because at the end of it, the whole world is driven by people, and people being human beings, there is always a soft point, a strong point, a way to kind of convince them. So if you always keep that in mind, saying that you want to do one thing, and that if you kind of figure out who or which group of people will enable you to do that one thing, then figuring out how to position it to them or message or tell that story is important. And the third part is there's a lot of power in storytelling. As in, say you can use stories to inspire bad things out of people, you can use stories to inspire great things out of people, but then is very, very underrated. And be it communication, speaking, translating complex ideas into simple words, I think that has a lot of value. I think these would be the top 3 learnings from it.
Okay. There's a so we are almost nearing the end of our time, but we have a few questions which we will try to cover quickly. Navya from Chikballapur asks, nowadays financial entrepreneurs are quite successful, right? It could be you, or it could be a lot of other companies like Paytm, which have really changed on wallet banking. Now, can a medical entrepreneur be as successful as a financial entrepreneur? Is the question that she asks.
No, fantastic question, Navya. I think again, it ties down to what I was mentioning before. That how do you see the market for what you're building? As in, financial services today in India, even though, as you know, as in, I don't know if many of the audience know this, but if you look at the top 50 companies of India by market cap, financial services would occupy like 40-50% of that. And this is where financial services hasn't kind of penetrated very well. Insurance, I think 1% of India would have. Mutual funds, I think 2%, less than 2% of India would have. Say, banking now has definitely reached a larger population thanks to the entire Jandan and Aadhaar. But that's where, if you tap into a huge market and there is a way to convert some inefficiency into a beautiful experience, that's where you can build a sustainable business. So financial services has been great for that. I think also it's been a little easier over the last few years, given that there have been a lot of pivotal changing points, be it GST, be it UPI, be it Aadhaar, be it demonetization, that have actually encouraged more financial inclusion or more people going digital to do financial transactions. But then medical technology or say healthcare also taps into an equally large pool of people. Just in get looking at a global audience here, just in India, everybody is in need of some healthcare systems that they need to look at, be it preventive, be it say for uh, curing someone's ailments. But this is a market that everybody needs. So I think where kind of there have been companies that have been able to tap into a certain aspect of that. But if you can find a problem or a solution that a lot of people are facing, a solution to a problem that a lot of people are facing, and find a way to kind of build a beautiful experience by cutting out an inefficiency, that's a large business opportunity waiting. So I don't think there is anything fundamentally uh, wrong in say the healthcare model itself. It's the market is there, the timing is right today. People are definitely more looking or more health conscious or fitness conscious as well. Those are two trends that have actually been happening. Unfortunately, that's what some of the players that have actually won in this are global players who are coming into India and doing this. So I don't think there's anything fundamentally missing in the business or the market opportunity. Is just that people haven't gone out and built those business models
Right.
yet.
I think especially since we're talking about healthcare, with healthcare informatics coming in, and probably our Prime Minister also spoke during the Independence Day regarding medical ID or health ID that would really help information about patient or about their health be shared among all the stakeholders. Now, talking about this, there's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence and big data, machine learning. How has this impacted the financial space? And do you leverage any of these technologies, or do you plan to in the future?
No, I think again, at the risk of sounding repetitive here, I think that's what any technology or anything you do, if it's kind of removing any inefficiency in the entire chain, that is when it makes sense for a business to actually use it. Even though there are, say, a lot of businesses who use these as buzzwords to kind of sound cool or sound like it's very modern or very futuristic, as long as it's being used to kind of solve a core experience
Right.
or a product problem, there's not much point in that. Today, we are not yet there. We are getting there in terms of scale to actually start looking at data or machine learning in order to, again, it's not just to kind of say that we're using it, hence, we sound cool or something, but uh, the issues that we're facing today, or say a challenge like we were down for some time, say last week, that was because we touched a certain amount of uh, number of transactions in a day that we didn't plan for. And while we had over optimized things earlier, that one day it went even beyond that certain limit. So I think that's where we are starting to use a little bit of big data or say these techniques to actually predict what could be behavior basis, say different parameters, what's happening in the markets,
Right.
what's happening in the global markets, how many people are say logging in, is there any new information that is coming in from our platform on that day. If there is a different combination of this that could you know
Right.
foretell a certain event, we need to be prepared. So I think that's how we're thinking about it. But people have used AI in different ways. Again, for example, say you have to decide between a certain thing, which would be say uh, earlier you would get a choice of items and then you have to select between one. Now the inefficiency there is people might drop off because you're seeing 10 choices.
Right.
People might say I don't know what to do, but then what AI for example helps in a certain use case over here is to actually show you two and say that these are the two things that you need to choose between, and the other eight things are eliminated because of choices that other people with a similar profile have made.
Yeah.
So if I think those are things which could be used at in services that have scaled and have a lot of data underlying. But maybe today at our scale we are not yet using it, but we're starting to use that. But for example, say for a bank which deals with crores of accounts, millions of transactions on a hourly basis, that could be really vital in order to, say, for example, uncover fraud
Correct.
and actually build like reduce fraudulent people as well as elements
Correct.
in the system, at the
Like
same time
how
kind of give a
credit
better
card
experience to
companies are
people.
doing it. Yeah. I
Absolutely.
think the take home is that technology should not be used for the sake of using the technology. It should actually solve a problem or make. I think that's what you've been telling. Now, we are running out of time. So, at the end, I would like to ask you one last question. What is your message to budding entrepreneurs? What are some pitfalls they should avoid in their journey of becoming successful? And what kind of efforts must they put in order to be successful?
Sure. So this was something that, as I mentioned, I was thinking in late 2014-15, while, that purpose or the intent was always there to do something on my own. Now you don't know whether the timing is right, the idea is right, the people you're working with is right. All of those are calls that or bets that you take based on your gut or instinct at that point. But for me, primarily, I think the taking the plunge into entrepreneurship was finally driven by, by kind of two things. One was, what is the worst case that could happen because of, say, that I built this company. If it fails, goes to zero, what is the downside for me? And I think what I figured out then, and what is true for anybody also kind of taking that decision today, is that the downside is zero. In the sense, if, say, you are looking to build your own business at a young enough age, I'm not taking the same framework for people who are, say, 50 plus, for example, or 40 plus, for example, because there are other responsibilities and things that come into place. But if you're looking to build a business before the age of 30, even if you spend 2 years and you're working with the wrong people or the wrong market, or, say, your idea is not ready to be scalable, your downside is that the company goes to zero, but you would be a lot more uh, knowledgeable in terms of how business is built, and that is valuable for other people. So I think I'd mentioned this earlier, but if, say, for 2 years you're continuing to do the same work versus you believe strongly in an idea and actually devote 2 years of that, you would basically be 2 levels higher than where you would be if you were in continuing to do the same thing that you were, because you've taken a risk, you've gone out, done something beyond your comfort zone that gives you confidence to do more things that is outside your comfort zone. At the same time, the learnings, the people that you interact with, the network that you build will stay with you for life. So that was one kind of, I think, framework that I looked at, or how I thought about it. That my downside was zero. There's no reason not to start this. Even if this fails, I will be better off than where I am today. Even if this fails and goes to zero completely. The second one was, this is a famous framework by Jeff Bezos. He uses it, but it's called the regret minimization framework. That if you are thinking about doing one thing over the other, just think about, say, 20 years, 30 years on your deathbed, thinking about that very decision and whether you would regret not doing something or doing something. As in, if you're regretting not taking a certain step, that you should do that. So I think these two were the things that I used to kind of take that plunge into the domain. But again, I think if you are keen on starting your own business, just evaluate it from these three aspects. One is, do you have the whether what you're building can at some point take a very generic, broader view to it. Don't take the specific thing that you're building. Take a larger view. Say, for example, you're building something in healthcare. If you're building, even, say, telemedicine in healthcare, for example, like, don't just think about the prospects or the market size of telemedicine. Basically look at whether healthcare as an industry is growing in India, or the consciousness of people is growing in India or not, and whether that market is big enough. Second, whether the timing is right. Are more people kind of will there be a lot more people tomorrow versus, say, the same thing happening in 5 years? And the third is the people that you work with. If you have the right set of people that you're working with, the right support system, that itself could do wonders to your journey.
Uh, it is said that no one is born an achiever. It is all in the attitude. I think we have witnessed what this means by talking to you today. Thank you so much for being a part of EduPath and inspiring our students to aim high.
Absolutely, Ankush. Thank you so much for having me here. Thanks to everyone who attended this. Thanks for taking time out on a Sunday evening. Hopefully, there are some useful takeaways for you. Feel free to reach out to me in case I can help you, help any of you on your journeys
It
ahead.
would be wonderful once the situation improves. It would be very nice to have you visit our campus and speak to our students face to face, because I think that will have a completely different impact on the students as well.
No, no, absolutely. Look forward to that day,
Thank you.
Ankush. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so
This
much.
has been a very nice conversation.
Viewers, next week we will have a guest who literally flies high, not only in terms of his achievements, but as part of his profession too. Our resource person for the next episode will be Captain Sunil Sadashivpet, who is an ex-pilot of the Indian Air Force and currently a commander at Air India. See you all on 27th of December, that is a Sunday at 5 p.m. Until then, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and wish you all a great week ahead. Thank you so much.